Hi, everyone. Welcome. Feel free to drop in the chat where you're calling in from, and if you'd like to turn on your cameras, definitely welcome. We're just going to give it like 1 or 2 minutes for a few more people to trickle in and then get started. I see someone's from Canada, another in Utah, California. I'm from California. Where in California are you, Trevor? For anyone that just joined, feel free to turn on your camera and drop in the chat where you're calling in from. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. And as people come to the meeting, they can ask questions as well. Can you all see my screen? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm Samantha. I'm currently a business operations and strategy associate at Google. I'm on the team goes by BizOps, and we're the central strategy team essentially for the C-suite of Google. Formerly, I was a business analyst at McKinsey in San Francisco for about 2 years, and I went to WashU where I studied economics and strategy in the business school. And I've helped tons of friends, family friends, and people on Leland land their dream consulting roles, and I'm hoping to help you as well, even if not in a formal way, at least today, answering some of your questions. So here are some of the types of questions you can ask me about. Anything from the McKinsey PEI, which stands for Personal Experience Interview. Essentially, it's McKinsey's behavioral interview section, to cracking the case, how I prepared for the case, networking, resume, cover letter, recruiting, and then also kind of how I built up my resume to apply to McKinsey. So what internships and extracurriculars and types of things I did throughout college. So I am going to let you ask questions in the chat. Oh, wait, here we I don't know why it's not sharing. I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and then you guys, or actually just in the chat, you can feel free to ask any questions and I can answer them. Also, feel free to unmute to ask questions.
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yeah, I can hear you, Victoria.
okay, perfect. I want to know because I'm also in BizOps, and I want to transition into like a BizOps role. This will be more, I guess, not really. Maybe some parts it would be consulting, but what kind of skills from consulting have you taken for your Google role right now? Like as
Yeah, so a lot of the day-to-day is quite similar. So making building client relationships, kind of the networking aspect of that, but then also building slides, building strategy decks or papers, like using a tool such as Google Sheets or Excel, problem solving, just kind of like the core consulting toolkit you'll continue to use in other roles.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. I don't know if I should continue asking more or
Yeah,
if
you
someone
can
wants
ask
to
more
jump in.
questions.
Also just during your consulting days, what were some of your I guess top three projects that are most memorable to you?
I would say my first project was my favorite project, and it's kind of funny. Most of my friends that worked at McKinsey, our first projects were all our favorite. I think they try to put you on a project that's going to be most exciting at the beginning when you're new. It was for a health and fitness company. So I had the opportunity not only to work on something I'm passionate about, which is health and fitness, but also get to like try and use the products. And since I left, the associate partner of my project like went to go be their CMO, and the my manager ended up going to be like a VP of marketing there. So we all really loved the client, and it was kind of in a rural location, which gave us a lot of bonding time as a team. And then another project I really liked was for an airline. I love to travel, so like working for an airline was kind of my dream project I wanted my whole time at McKinsey. So I had the opportunity to work for an airline, more on the cost side, but there were multiple teams on the ground, and we had a really good dynamic, and the clients worked really well with us. And then I would say another project that I really liked, one client at McKinsey I served on three separate projects. I just loved the team so much. And I think a big part of that was the senior leaders. I think, uh, did someone else have a question too? Or was that accidental?
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I am coming from a non-core recruiting school for McKinsey. However, I am going on a consulting visit out where I'll be in their office pretty soon. What would be some like advice you'd give on just like in-person networking? It'll be a good intimate environment. The types of things you think you'd want to see. I've done cases before. I kind of understand the general things you're looking at in terms of like leadership and those sort of things, but I haven't done a site visit like this before. So just curious perspectives there.
So, one thing I'd say about non target recruiting schools is I think McKinsey, especially, but I think other consulting firms as well, are trying to diversify the populations they're bringing in candidates from. They're amazing candidates from all schools and backgrounds. So, I think now more than ever, coming from a non target school is like going to be a bit easier. But I would say in the in person, I would focus on building relationships. I think consulting, the biggest part of how you get put on projects is because someone on the team will say, I've worked with her, she's great, or in this case, he's great, and I want to work with them again. So I would say build relationships with people that will vouch for you during the recruiting process. So you can do that by sharing about your background, identifying commonalities with people. I don't know, are you going to know before who you're going to meet with, or are you just going to find out when you get there?
I'm not, I don't currently know. It's next week. I might be able to figure it out. We have some alum there who I assume it's being coordinated through. So there's potential outreach there that I could do some free work for sure.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I would definitely recommend like researching the people you're going to meet with, and trying to identify what industries do they work in, and kind of what are their interests and what kind of research they do, because often at McKinsey they'll publish papers and different things. So you can learn about what they're interested in and try to connect it to either work you've done or what you're interested in.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Any other
I
questions?
have a
Yeah.
question on, I guess, MBA internships. I'm not sure if that's something that you're able to kind of answer, but I guess during the time that you were with McKinsey, and McKinsey is probably my target company.
Mhm.
How does, I guess, through your internships as well as your I think your business analyst role with McKinsey, how does that? Like, have you seen any of the MBA interns? What are their MBA journey like? Whether they essentially do the same thing as you guys do, or do they enter in one step above? Can you kind of demystify that? I guess, what you experienced with MBA candidates or people during the time that you were at McKinsey?
Yeah, so out of college, you come in at the business analyst level at McKinsey, but out of MBA, you come in at the associate level. So it's a high I think someone's volume is echoing. Anyways, so you come in at a higher level, but essentially you're doing the same role. So while your title is a little bit higher and your pay is more, it's the same general level. So when I go on a project, I would sometimes replace an associate on the team, or I would leave a project, an associate would replace me. The only kind of thing for staffing is associates cost more to projects than business analysts because they're paid more. So that's kind of a consideration that the leadership of the project has to take into account. But I would say MBA applicants come from a variety of backgrounds. I know MBA applicants that worked in nonprofits before, worked in teaching, worked in tech. There are so many different backgrounds that can end up in the MBA internship and the MBA full-time roles. So I would definitely say no matter what your background is, you should put your hat in the ring. And if you can put together a compelling reason why you want to work in consulting and specifically why McKinsey, that would really help you stand out and get an interview. And I would recommend networking with other people that go to or went to your business school and are working there, because oftentimes if someone's a year older, like a year ahead of you in business school, and they have a full-time offer and they're there, they can help you maybe get in through either a referral or some other way.
Got it. In terms of timeline wise, like, do you guys overlap in terms of the business analyst interns and the MBA interns? Do they all come into McKinsey roughly around the same time during a summer break, or is there something different?
Yeah, so the internships, at least in the United States, are all over the summer. When the interns start kind of depends on your school. For example, if you're on the quarter system versus the semester system, your calendar will be a little different, but there are a few start classes of MBA and summer interns.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, Samantha, here.
I can hear you, yeah.
Hi. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I guess like a little bit quick background about myself. I'm actually going to EY Parthenon in their turnaround and restructuring group for 2025 summer. I was just wondering if you have any advice, I guess, for transitioning to, I guess, leveraging that for my final summer at like a MBB, and I guess switching from like restructuring to more like a general strategy consulting role and whatnot. So,
Yeah,
and I guess also it's in the Toronto office. I was just wondering if the US offices would be receptive of, taking a Canadian student. Yeah.
So my McKinsey BA class in San Francisco had tons of international students. So I would say at least McKinsey is very receptive to international students. I have a bunch of friends in my BA class who didn't even get McKinsey interviews for the internship and ended up with full-time offers. So I would say it's definitely possible, especially you're doing such a prestigious internship at EY Parthenon. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
My former roommate in San Francisco interned at EY Parthenon and then did McKinsey full-time. So it's definitely a pipeline. So I would say just try to learn as much as possible from EY and try to get skills that are transferable to management consulting. I know the group you're in is a little bit more specific. So try to, in addition to doing
For sure. Yeah.
like whatever you're assigned, try to find additional projects or side projects that you can leverage and talk about in your interviews. The McKinsey interviews, as I mentioned before, have this behavioral section called the personal experience interview. And each one is basically a deep dive on one kind of story. So if you can have a few stories from your summer internship that you can leverage during your interviews, I think that'll be really powerful and help you get through the interviews if you make it to that stage.
That's amazing. I really appreciate the insight.
Of course. Feel free to also, if you don't want to unmute, you can drop questions in the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I joined the call a little bit late, but I do want to talk about your transition between McKinsey and now you're at Google, right? So what was there, I guess, what was the main drivers for you to actually transition to the like client side, I would guess? Like typically what I've seen so far with people's journey with McKinsey is that they'll climb as high as they can, probably like between that 3 to 5 years, and then transition to client. is there, yeah, what made you transition to Google rather than going up the chain with McKinsey?
Yeah, so I always knew I wanted to work in tech long term. But when the summer before my senior year, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a full-time position, I talked to some family friends and friends a few years older, and a lot of them had started their careers in consulting and talked about the skills you gain in consulting and how it really prepares you to be a leader in the workplace no matter what path you choose. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring for consulting and apply. I specifically had a friend at McKinsey who encouraged me to apply and thought it would be a really good fit. And going in, I knew it was something I wanted to do for like a few years and then transition. And so I worked at McKinsey for about 2 years, and then I decided I wanted to make a change and transition into tech. So I'm happy to talk a little bit more about like my recruiting experience, or if you have any other specific questions, happy to answer those.
Yeah, I guess from the day-to-day experience wise, like in terms of your, how does the working in teams at McKinsey, how does that compare to your current role? Does Google within the business operations and strategies portion approach it very similarly to McKinsey, or how does that, is it drastically different? I would love to hear
Yeah,
some
it's
insight.
pretty. So my team is pretty similar to the consulting structure. Almost everyone on my team at Google, there are about like 50 or 60 of us, worked in consulting prior. So kind of the lingo we use and the companies we come from are very similar, mostly McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. And I would say the day-to-day is similar but a bit different. So for example, we're not traveling to our clients.
Sure.
We travel twice a year as an internal team to meet up in the Bay Area, but beyond that, we work mostly over Google Meet. And we have 3 hubs, so San Francisco, Mountain View, and New York. I'm in the New York hub. And so we can work across these hubs to meet and work in teams. And then our clients are internal. So having internal clients really breaks down like the McKinsey client relationship. It makes it really easy to connect immediately. We can chat with them over ping. It's just a much more seamless process than consulting where you have to write a statement of work, and if you want to change scope it requires many meetings and changes in the contract, versus here we can, if we identify a new opportunity or think something else is worth exploring, we can easily pivot. So I think just working internally is much nicer, and then also we don't have to do crazy travel. So when I was at McKinsey, I would typically fly every Sunday to my client because my clients were often in the middle or the east coast of the country. And I did this to avoid red eyes, but it meant I had a 1-day weekend. So I really enjoy like having my full weekend and being able to like enjoy the time. And then also the hours are much better. So we work closer to like 8 or 9 hours a day versus in consulting, it was closer to like 12 plus hours a day.
Gotcha. Yeah, so better work-life balance then. And I guess in terms of, what are the chances of new grads without going into the consulting route? What are the chances of just new grads landing your current role? Do you feel like there's prerequisites and there's skill sets that people really do need to be picked up by the Big Four or in MBB before transitioning into something like your role, or would they consider somebody that's fresh into consulting and be able to mold them into something that they need?
Yeah, so my team primarily hires, or actually exclusively hires experience hires. So we don't hire anyone directly out of college.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But there are other similar like business and biz ops and strategy teams at other companies that probably do hire straight out of college. I'm just not as familiar with those, but you should definitely look into those. I know like DoorDash has strategy teams, Uber, like most tech companies do. So definitely recommend looking into those if you want to do that without doing consulting. And I know someone that's at, I think, Morgan Stanley, who's on a similar team doing strategy, and he joined straight out of college.
Okay, no, thanks for that insight. Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question, like just relating back to that. So when you said that external hires, it's best to have like a level of experience, Do you think 2 or 3 years of experience in like biz ops would be sufficient to get into like the role that you're currently in, or it's better for like most people to get into consulting and then transition in?
I think on the job posting, it talks about how you can come from like a biz ops background or a consulting background, but since basically everyone on the team previously worked in consulting, it like it's not that there's a bias, but it's just like more common to come in that way. I think you could come in the other route, but most people come in from consulting. So I think that just shows like how the consulting skill set is valued and
Yeah. Thanks.
Hey Samantha, it's Alex.
hi.
Within the New York Google offices, which one's your favorite and which one has the best food?
Um I would say I really like the new office, St. John's Terminal. It's on the West Side Highway, has great views. They actually have like a sit down restaurant, so you don't even order food, they just bring you everything that's on the menu, which is really fun. And then there's also a falafel place in there that's really good. So highly recommend. You guys should all let me know if you're ever in New York and we can grab lunch. I know we have a few more minutes, so just wanted to check to see if anyone else has last minute questions. Feel free to unmute or put in the chat. I can also just talk through a few topics a little bit more about my background if that would be helpful. So just let me know.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to know a bit more about like the strategies or the departments you kind of work with on a day to day.
Currently,
Oh yeah, currently. Also previously if that kind of like translates into the current role, but
yeah, so at McKinsey, I did 8 projects. My first one was focused on marketing and HR for a fitness company. My second project was for a state government doing COVID testing in schools. So I was in charge of all the COVID testing in the schools, both direct funding, where we would give money to schools and they would hire their own testers, and end to end support, where we would bring in our own testers to the schools, and then tracking how many tests were given, how many positives, etc. That was honestly felt like the most impactful project as it was very relevant during the pandemic. My third project was for a fiber internet company working on industrialization and industrializing their build process. My fourth project was the cost project for an airline that I mentioned. My fifth project was for a bank, and I worked on risk mitigation. So the bank was at risk of being shut down because of regulators. So I was working to ensure that the board was holding the executives at the bank accountable and making sure everything went smoothly so they weren't shut down. And they haven't been shut down and the project's over. So all is well there. My next project was working on our alliance service team. So we have these public alliances with different cloud providers. So I worked on the one with Amazon Web Services, and we got to go to their annual conference reInvent in Las Vegas, and I kind of organized all the McKinsey, like hundreds of McKinsey people were there, and we had tons of different events. So I got to work on that, which was very fun. And then my final 2 projects were back with the same fiber internet company. One focused on kind of playing a product manager role, and then the other one focused on like helping with the data migration. And then currently, my first project was focused on ads measurement. So looking at these new view-based metrics. I don't know if you're familiar with how ads work, but usually you pay by the click. And as AI is becoming more prevalent and people are reading a lot of information, not necessarily clicking a link, but still being influenced, how do we measure this view? And then right now I'm working on a geospatial project. So think of like maps and Earth Engine.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
If you were to go back and tell yourself one more thing when you were an undergrad, what would you tell yourself?
I would say one, that hard work pays off, and then two, just like do what you love and it'll all work out. I feel like certain people in college would try to like, oh, I'm going to do this extracurricular because it'll look good for this. So, for example, people like join business fraternities or consulting clubs, and while those are great, and if you want to do that, it's can be super helpful for recruiting. I found that I wanted to try different things, and so, for example, my main extracurriculars in college were volunteering at the Juvenile Detention Center in St. Louis and being a teaching assistant, overseeing subsection for an introductory business class. Um, and I was also in this women's business group and oversaw all the external speakers we had. So I was just doing things that I was interested in. And I think that genuinely shined through during my interviews. I think if you're doing things just for your resume or doing things just because you think you should be doing them, you'll make it to the interview, but you're not going to make it past that point. And then in terms of hard work, I would say putting in the time to do the cases, putting in the time to practice the behavioral, and just preparing for all aspects. So when you submit your application, you're dropping a resume and potentially a cover letter. You want to put your best foot forward then, because that's all they're going to see in your application. Then if you make it past that round, there might be some sort of McKinsey game or BCG has an online case. You want to take those very seriously because that's the only determining factor whether or not you get the interview is what you submitted before then, right? And then once you get to the live case interviews, you want to really practice. I would say I probably did like 60 cases before my McKinsey interview. I know some people that did fewer, some people that did more, but just you want to get to a place where you really feel comfortable with what you're doing and saying, and you know how to do many different types of cases. And that takes time and that takes practice. And then I would say don't sleep on the behavioral. McKinsey weights the behavioral equal to the case. So if you just do really well on the case but don't do well on the behavioral, you won't get the offer. So I'd say 100% put in time for the behavioral. And there are very specific strategies you can use and a type of questioning method that we at McKinsey learn as interviewers. So I'm happy to work with you, and there are many other coaches also that would be happy to work with you and explain this to you and help you practice.
Are there like specific websites that you would recommend to look through some cases?
I would say tons of different business schools have case books. So I would recommend looking at case books. Oftentimes the case books are MBA cases, but I honestly think that's better. If you do harder cases, then when you get to the interview, it'll be a little bit easier. And then also Leland Plus has tons of great resources. I think maybe Amanda can drop in the comments a link to sign up to Leland Plus, but there are recordings of people doing cases like sample resumes and cover letters, things like that. So that can be helpful. And then there's this other website I use in college called Management Consulted, and they have like a list of consulting deadlines and a case bank. My school paid for a subscription, but the deadlines are free to get, and then the cases I think may cost money.
What's the name of it again? Sorry.
Management Consulted.
Okay. I just want to make sure. But yeah, got it. Thanks.
No problem. Also, any other questions before we wrap up? Well, thank you all so much for attending. It was great to chat with you, and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Good luck with recruiting, and let me know if I can be of any help.
Thank you, Samantha.
Bye.
Bye.